Yeah, I think personally I have a preference in terms of who wins. I know who I'm going to be voting for, so I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for whether or not somebody looks like they can carry through with what their platform says is their party's agenda. When it comes to presidential elections in particular, the most important thing any president ever accomplishes is who they put on the courts. That's their longest lasting contribution. So whether or not somebody looks like they're going to be the kind of person that's able to carry through with putting the kinds of judges on the right federal courts would be the most important thing I'm looking for. But I also realize that the debates make almost no difference in the election. The first presidential televised election debate before an election was in 1960 with Richard Nixon and John Kennedy. There wasn't another debate held until '76 with Reagan and Carter. But in all of those years, with the presidential debates having been televised since that has been done, only 3 times has a person won the election who wasn't running ahead in the polls before the debates were even held, indicating people have already decided who they're going to vote for before they actually get to the point of the debates. I think it's more true in our day even than it was in 1960, 52 years ago, because we have the internet, we have instant access to information. Anything anybody wants to know about either candidate, they already know. We can watch footage or video clips anytime we want about any speech they've ever made anywhere. So there's nothing left for a candidate to inform the people with. There's nothing they can say that's going to give us the information that we need in order to give us a more informed vote that isn't already out there. So what people look for is they just look for the candidate who's making the best impression, who looks most presidential. They fuss a little bit. The press does a little bit after an election or after a debate about whether somebody was wrong about this fact or that fact or whatever. But in the end, people forget the quotes about facts and stuff that people make. They want to know, do they seem presidential to me? But again, they've already decided who they're going to vote for. In all of the years of the presidential debates, there's only been the 3 times that somebody wasn't ahead in the polls who won the election, and even those 3 are sort of special cases. The Gore-Bush election, Gore was ahead in the popular poll before the debate. He won the popular election in terms of raw votes after the debate. Bush won through the Electoral College, and we don't poll based on the Electoral College. So even that, as one of the 3, is maybe not really, doesn't show that the debates made any difference. The one debate that maybe the debate made some difference, and even that, again, a special case, it was the Carter-Reagan debate. And Carter was already at a 30% approval rating, so there was a great disinterest in bringing Carter back for another election, though before the debates he was slightly ahead of Reagan. At that time the concern was whether Reagan, an actor, would be a legitimate president or not. But in that debate, Reagan said a couple of things that became famous quotes later, but the one that he's probably most remembered for is the question that he asked Americans. He looked in the camera and he asked Americans this question: are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And that question made a lot of people stop and ask themselves that question, and they began to think, no, really not. And so for tonight's debate, for the debate that we've just had with the presidents or the vice presidents, in each case the debaters are looking for an opportunity to make that kind of impression. Is there going to be the right question asked and the right context? Because it comes across as canned. It doesn't work if they just memorize some clever little saying or something to try and work it into the debate. But is there something that they can say in the context of the debate that will capture the imagination of the American people and make them think about something that they had not thought about before the debate? Something about the nature of the candidate, the nature of the debate, the nature of America, where we are, where we need to go. Again, that's not very likely because of the amount of information that's out, CNN, et cetera, all the news sources online. It's hard to come up with something that nobody's ever thought about yet, and to say it in a clever enough way that it captures the attention of the American people. So I watch the debates because they're interesting, just to see the people interact. I like to see, in the case of Romney, who I've seen less of, obviously, over the years than Obama. You look to see, does he appear to be presidential in his demeanor? Can he communicate clearly to the American people what he wants to say in a way that we will believe him and want to follow? But in the end, they don't really make a difference in the outcome. So they're not as crucial sometimes as people like to make them believe.
Can you think of the most memorable quotes that the presidential candidates at this point have made from
these two candidates?
Yeah.
No, I can't, because I don't think either one has accomplished that. But to their credit, neither have the debaters from past elections outside of Reagan. The other, in that Carter debate, the other quote that he's most famous for is he kind of sighed and he said, "There you go again." And his reference was to Carter misrepresenting Reagan's plan, particularly what was called Reaganomics and supply-side economic growth plan. And he was able to do that in a way that everybody since who's tried to do that has failed. And being a professional actor probably didn't hurt him, but when the typical debater, Biden is a good example in the vice presidential election, Biden got dinged by the press for smirking and coming off as if he was a superior sort of person or something to the man he was debating. And that doesn't communicate very well with American people. We like somebody who's not only strong, but can be strong and gracious. We want somebody who will be a strong communicator, but will also listen. And so Reagan was able to pull off what was certainly a form of condescension toward the sitting president, which you would think would be very hard to do, but a professional actor did it, which caught our attention as American public, that Carter, although he was the president, wasn't even up to date on the issues, or he couldn't talk with Reagan about the plans because he apparently misunderstood everything that Reagan was presenting and everything. Every time it's been tried since, Gore got hit hard with that in his presidential debate. Everybody since Reagan who's tried to come across as I know it all and you don't have come across as a know-it-all, not as a sympathetic figure. So no quotes, no quotes that.
So are the vice presidential debates absolutely worth nothing?
No, in fact, in some ways they may be more important than the presidential debates, and it's kind of odd that we only have one of them. I mean, we understand why, because the president's who we elect and all. But there is a question that people ask during a vice presidential debate, and that is, because we know less about them usually than we do the presidential candidate, the question is, can this man or woman, we've had vice presidential candidates who are female, can this person, do I think they can actually be a president should something happen to the president? And that has happened in recent enough memory that a lot of people think about that. If the president gets assassinated or something, is this somebody that we can get behind as our next president? And if somebody hasn't been on the national stage before, typically governors from smaller states perhaps, or congressmen rather than senators, who are televised a little less often in terms of speech making and stuff. If it's somebody who doesn't, like Ryan, who doesn't come from a big prominent role on the national stage, there are a lot of people wondering that, is this person going to be able to be president if they have to be? And so in some cases, those might actually swing a small number of voters. If people, as our country is fairly 50-50 divided, we've been red-blue states now for a long time, and we get down like with the Gore-Bush election, you know, counting hanging chads, trying to figure out who actually won the election because we're so 50-50 split on so much in our country, that something like whether or not this unknown figure, this relatively minor player on the national scene, whether or not this person can be a president or not is something that some people actually would maybe be interested in. So yeah, I think the vice presidential debates hold more interest in terms of the election, the way people will vote maybe even than the presidential debates.
The political climate, is it the same as it's been in the past, or do you think it's harsher, or is it just go back and forth?
It's just, I don't think it's changed, except that it changes sometimes in the way that things get acted out. That is, the term mudslinging has been a common part of elections for as far back as we have. I mean, in ancient Greece and Rome and stuff, they're trying to make the other candidate look foolish or look unelectable in the election. That's been going on forever. But they didn't have TV advertisements that did it. So the technology changes, the way it looks changes, but the tactics of trying to get elected, working at a grassroots level, trying to make yourself in the eyes of the people be that person they can get behind, those things have always been what people have looked for. I do think one thing has changed. I don't think it affects the elections at all, but in terms of politics, I think one thing that has changed is there isn't anymore the kind of respect either for the office, among politicians I'm talking about, not just the people of the country doing the voting, but among politicians, there isn't a respect for the office, and there's not a respect for other parties in all the way maybe there used to be. Nixon resigned after Watergate in order to protect the dignity of the office of the president, even though it was questionable whether he had done what he had done, whether it was illegal, whether he had some authority to be doing what he was doing. The fact that he wasn't doing it personally, it was a Republican National Convention, but he was the candidate that was, associated with them. So in those days, stepped down in order to preserve the dignity of the office. But with Clinton, who lied before Congress and all, there was nothing in terms of respect for the office. It was personally holding on to the office was more important than respect for the office. And I think that shows up in the way candidates maybe, mudslinging has always been there, but it's always been, in the past, it's been sort of indirect shots. And now it's just, it's as if everybody disrespects everybody else, which I think disenfranchises a lot of the electorate. We just get tired of that.
Yeah.